Welcome back to Lost in Games Unscripted, the perpetual series on the channel where I talk about pretty much whatever I want to talk about on any given time. This is the second time I'm taking this because the first time didn't go as planned. I've been trying to find the right way to talk about this. So normally in this series, we talk about stories and games and that kind of thing. But for this particular episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about autism and gaming and how I approach games. Because I mentioned this a couple weeks ago in a live stream, and it's something that I don't talk about a lot on the channel, but I'm autistic. I'm on the spectrum. I didn't find out until I was an adult. Essentially, I did some research based off of a video. I'd seen somebody else talking about it, and I was kind of curious, and I started looking into it, took some tests, and realized that I'm on the spectrum. It's one of those things that is... It's more internal. It's more of something that is helpful for me than it is for anything else because it helps me understand the way my brain works when it comes to certain things. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that because when I mentioned it in the live stream, a few other people had said that they were also on the spectrum. And it got me thinking that maybe some of the people that my content clicks best with are in the same boat as me. So I've noticed at times I will get comments on videos with people that are focused mainly on the story or on the lore of a game, despite the fact that I've tried to make as clear as possible, especially recently, that the Philosophy and Ethics in Game series is more about looking at it from a different angle, using games as thought experiments. But that's not normal. You know, most people, when they look at games, they're looking at games from just the gameplay standpoint. They might be talking about the lore of the world. They might be talking about the series, if there's a series of games, the different characters from the perspective of within the game. People don't typically look at these things from any other perspective. So I think it confuses some people when they come across my videos. They're like, well, this is weird. What is going on? Why is this guy talking about this thing? He's wrong about the lore when I'm not talking about the lore at all. I've had people correct me and say, well, no, this is, in the game world, it works this way. And I'm like, I don't care about how the game world works. and all of that goes back to being neurodivergent, being on the autistic spectrum, and trying to share my voice in the way that I think of things in a more public forum, in a more public setting. So for a lot of people, even if you find out as a child, when you're autistic, if you find out as a child, there's certain traits, there's certain things that are seen. People have gotten better. We've gotten better at spotting it in the past 30 or 40 years or so. But it's still, unless things really stick out, unless there's a really good reason to look, most people just assume that every child's norm, I don't want to say normal is not the right word, but every child is this particular way. And unless they have a really, really far out there thing, unless they're really on this end of the spectrum, it's never really addressed. For me as a child growing up in the 80s and the 90s, autism was one of those things that they said vaccines cause autism. And so my mom was an anti-vaxxer and was very, very religious about that. We don't do that because I don't want my kids to get autism, right? Because that was a bad thing. But I always felt different. I never really felt like I fit in. I spent my entire childhood and early adult years especially really just mimicking what I saw in others around me. People would act certain ways or I would just kind of pick up on, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so I would just start acting like everybody else around me. And I'm almost feeding off of whatever environment I was in. I could move pretty easily, especially in high school. I was on the football team, but I was also in theater. I was a theater kid. Backstage, I didn't do any acting, but I could move back and forth between groups pretty easily, right? Most of the people that I knew stuck with one group. You had the jocks, you had the nerds, you had the geeks, the nerds, same thing, kind of. But you had the theater kids, you had the musical kids, But I had friends in all of these groups, and I could kind of easily just jump back and forth between them. All I would have to do is just change how I acted. And I didn't realize at the time that wasn't really normal. even getting into adulthood, as I got out into the world, I joined the military, and I found myself fitting in with groups that didn't make any sense for me to fit into. And it was always just me kind of changing how I acted around people. And I found out in the past few years, and the research since I have learned that I'm on the spectrum, that that's called masking. And basically what it means is that instead of most people, when they fit into a group or a niche, they kind of just, they're there. They hang out. There are unspoken social cues that everybody just kind of takes on. And it's just like a thing that just happens, right? But once you get into one group, you kind of just stick with that group, and that's your group. And masking is basically just, you aren't able to pick up on those social cues, so you're just kind of watching how people act, and you're trying to act that way. You're trying to mimic those people. You put on a mask because if you start acting, if you act the way that you want to act, people look at you weird. You get bullied. You get made fun of. And anytime I tried to let that mask slip and talk to people and be myself, that's what happened. People would be like, "Oh, what the hell's wrong with this guy?" It was frustrating, and it was exhausting, but I didn't realize it. I didn't realize how worn out or why I was exhausted. I didn't realize what was wrong with me. And even now saying that, like, I don't think it's not fair to say something was wrong with me. It was just that I was different, right? So as I've learned in the past few years how all of this works and what it means for me and how I can adjust to things, it's allowed me to open up a little bit. And when I started making videos on YouTube, I've tried a million different things, right? I've tried, when I first started, I was doing some photography kind of stuff, going out and taking pictures and trying to like teach photography, even though I didn't even know what I was doing at the time, really. I've done cemetery chats where I sat down in the cemetery sometimes with my wife and would just have chats about random shit. I've done more creative kind of stuff that goes right into my writing, and wound up being resulting in my first debut novel that came out, The Journal. So I've done all of these different things, and then when I hit on the Philosophy and Ethics series, when The Walking Dead went out, became big for me last year on the channel, I was like, okay, I think I finally figured it out. I think I finally know this is how I can be myself, right? Because for me, if you really pay attention to what I talk about in the videos and how I really dig down into these things, I look at things in such a way that is just doesn't make any sense, right? For a lot of people. A lot of people will watch my videos and they will listen and they will say, what is this guy talking about? This is insane. But that's, a lot of that is just the way I think, right? And so I guess the reason I wanted to make this was to talk a little bit about that and to share my journey and my story, and maybe somebody else out there, because the same way for me, when I first got an inkling of the fact that I might be different in that, be beyond the spectrum in a way, was because another YouTuber had made a video talking about his journey and what he had gone through and how he had learned as an adult and taken diagnostic tests. And the thing is when it comes to autism, especially as an adult, there is self-diagnosis and there's an official diagnosis. Official diagnosis is you go through a bunch of therapists and psychologists, and there's a whole process involved. It's expensive, it's time consuming. And at the end of the day, you don't get anything for it. Self-diagnosis is part of the emotional intelligence that we've talked about in some of the videos in the Philosophy and Ethics series specifically, where it's learning more about yourself and how your mind works. And for me, that's what this journey has been, is learning about myself and how my mind works and how I see the world differently, and it helps me to kind of cope with things a little bit better. I still struggle. And I still have trouble with certain things. I still have trouble reading social cues and that kind of thing. For the most part, my job is here. Like, I don't have a lot of interaction with a lot of people, so it doesn't really impact me that much right now. But when I'm out and I'm talking to people, I've got, people I hang out with and that kind of thing. And it's still one of those things that I'm still learning how to handle and not mask as much. I'm still trying to figure out how to work that in these videos as well, because I want to be as true to who I am out there as possible in all of the stuff that I put out. That's important to me, especially in this day and age, partially because, you know, we've got there's so much fake shit out there. There's a lot of AI, there's a lot of bullshit. But at the end of the day, because I have spent the majority of my life, I'm turning 40 in a month and a half. And for the majority of that 40 years, I spent pretending to be something I wasn't. I spent trying to fit in and just pretending that I fit in any given group at any given time, when in reality, I didn't. And that's the biggest thing. You know, if maybe you are in that kind of a situation, maybe you're out there and you're like, man, I just don't know. I can't find myself fitting in anywhere. I don't understand what the problem is. You know, sometimes the best thing you can do is go out and find, there are multiple websites you can go to, different organizations that have self-diagnosing kind of tests. And if you take a few of those tests and it comes back and says, hey, yeah, you're probably on the spectrum, use that to learn more about that. Learn more about how your brain works. Learn more about things that you can do that are going to help you. Because one of the biggest problems I've dealt with, especially recently, really in the past 6 to 8 months, but even before that, I was dealing with something called autistic burnout, which is something I didn't know about until I started really digging in and learning. And it's basically, it's a form of burnout that you can't just rest and recover from. You know, you can't just if you get burnt out at work, normally you can just take a week off and relax and chill and maybe play some games and come back feeling refreshed. Autistic burnout doesn't work that way. Autistic burnout is usually due to spending so much time masking and not being yourself and trying to pretend you're something else. And then you get to the point where you can't even tell who you are sometimes, right? And for me, that has been a big thing, is trying to figure out how to handle that. And some of that has been just readjusting my work schedule a little bit. It's helped that I have the ability to adjust my own work schedule and focus on the things that I want to focus on, and finding ways to kind of unwind in a different way. And sometimes that's video games. Sometimes that's having conversations or making videos, right? Some of my wind down is sitting here talking to the camera or writing a script for a video, because that's cathartic to me. It sounds crazy, but it's something I really enjoy, you know, working, whether it's recording footage for a game, writing a script, researching, all of that stuff is cathartic. It's something I really enjoy doing. And for me, that means sometimes I focus on working when nobody's at home. I try to separate myself as much as possible when I need to. Thankfully, I've got an understanding wife she has been with me through this journey. We've been together for 20 plus years now. And in the past few years, it's been rough at times with me figuring all of this out and trying to explain to her like how my brain works and the things that bother me. And she's like, well, how can I help? What can I do? And I'm like, well, most of the time, nothing. Just listening to me, so that helps to have somebody just to listen. And it's those kind of things that it's once you learn about this stuff, and it's something where I highly encourage you to at least look for the signs of, try and figure out if that might be something, and then learn as much about it as you can. Even if you're not on the spectrum, it's good to learn, because there's a good chance that you know somebody personally who is on the spectrum that doesn't realize it, or that does but is masking and is trying to pretend like there's something they're not. And being able to help that person and be there for that person, to listen to them and to understand what they might be going through, is a big thing. It's empathy. We talk about that on the channel, right? So that's really what I wanted to get out with this video. I might talk more about it in the future. These videos are very off the cuff. This morning, I'm getting ready to stream in a couple of hours. This morning, when I decided to do this, I was like, you know what? I really need to get this off my chest. I really need to talk about it. So I didn't really prepare much. I've really spent the most part of today putting together the Batman philosophy and ethics video, the first the first video that's coming out probably 2 days after this one. So I've done all of that today, and but I just want to sit down and talk about this and get it out there. And if you have any questions in the comments, feel free, comment down below. The next unscripted video will probably be talking about, I am thinking about talking about the finale of The Last of Us, because there was some things on there, the comments, especially in the last video, that kind of irked me. And I thought about just making a video talking about it. So let me know if that would be something you're interested in. That's all I got for this one. I want to thank you all for watching. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.